investment attraction for games. In this panel, moderated by Fernando Campos, at Nuuvem, we will discuss about the difficult task of attracting investments to your game studio or company. Investors and investees will have an informal chat about what they seek and how they invest and attract funding for their projects. How to approach investors, what to present, what to pitch, what do they look for in new projects. All of this will take place in Portuguese with simultaneous translation into English. I'd like to call on screen now our speakers, participants. First, our host moderator, Fernando Campos, CEO and co-founder at Nuuvem. Hey, how you doing? Morning. Also, I'd like to call Edson Rigonati, a partner of Astela Investments. Morning, folks. We also have Rodrigo Batelli, representing Devolver Digital. Hey, folks, how are you? And last but not least, Thiago de Freitas, CEO of Koku. And we also had a chat on YouTube. How you doing, Thiago? Yay, great to see you again. All good, a pleasure to participate here with you guys. All right. So you have the screen. All right. Welcome, folks. Welcome, everyone, to one more panel here at Big Festival. My name is Fernando Campos. I'm CEO at Nuuvem. I have three fantastic guests to discuss this topic, which is always a splinter at the side. You know, it's a complex area, but we can break it down. We can work on it. I'm going to introduce my guests, Rodrigo Batelli from Devolver Digital. Rodrigo navigates in the games universe for over 15 years. Turtle Beach, so many other companies, and he says that he's like Devolver Digital. He believes the game has to be fun, not so impressive. Those who know Devolver, they know it is a publisher focused on indie games and working with fantastic games, Lockline Miami, so many other titles. And Edson Rigonati from Astela Investments. Edson is founding partner of Astela Investments, one of the most respected venture capital funds in Brazil, investments in Resultados Digitais, Culture Rock. So cool guy who knows a lot of this industry. And we also have our friend Thiago de Freitas, CEO, co-founder of Koku, one of the largest and best recognized gaming funds, acting on the largest franchises, if you know, Call of Duty, Horizon Zero Dawn, so many other great titles they worked on. They make us proud in Brazil, working with games that I personally have played, all of them, so I love them. And as I said, I'm Fernando, CEO, co-founder of Nuuvem, one of the largest games discussion platform in Latin America, over 20 million users a month around the world. And I'm a co-founder of a investment boutique where we assessed and invested in a number of technology startups, Rappi and Pipefy. So welcome, folks, once again to our panel. And let's go straight down to the core and to get into this straightforward discussion, what people want to know. First topic, what do investors want? What do publishers want? In very few words, what do you seek for when you look at any project, a company, or a studio? Would anyone like to take a shot at it? Come on, Rodrigo. Put the publishers on the on the spotlight. Come on. No problem. I think regardless of being an investor or a publisher, overall, the scope, what everybody seeks is cool projects, of course, with a potential for profitability. So very much associated to these skills of the developers to accomplish the project, to get the idea out of the piece of paper and bring it to life. On paper accepts everything. All the ideas are great, but when when executing the idea, when bringing life into the project, getting it out of that piece of paper, that's where the rubber meets the road. Maybe it changes a bit depending on the investor profile, changes their bias on how they look at the project. Some look much more at the content, go into other areas. Others maybe begin first looking at profitability, the figures, and so forth. But overall, I think these are important pillars that they're gonna end up looking at. Edson, we hear a publisher, somebody like Rodrigo, talking about execution clearly. And this is a mantra that we hear at length in investments. What do you think, Edson? Is that in sync with what you think at Astella? What are the aspects that you consider an entrepreneur, a game dev, somebody who's creating something new? How do you look at that? 100% on the same page with what Rodrigo mentioned. I like saying that my day-to-day, it's just like Rodrigo's as a publisher. I think we're both trying to find something that'll take us to the summit of Everest. I call it a unicorn and he calls it maybe a blockbuster game or something. My statistics and his are the same. Out of every 1,000 startups that get angel investment, 100 get to base camp, 25 to P1, 12 P2, 6, 3, and 1. And so the works of investors and publishers is the same. So how do we do this together? That's the major discussion. How can I be or generate one of those 1,000 ideas that can become a unique blockbuster? It's interesting that we have Thiago from Cocu. In a way, right, Thiago, you assess the projects with which you work with, but you were invested also, you were funded. I'm sure that you also have the understanding of the other side of the table. So one of the things that Rodrigo mentioned, it's important, the capacity of the devs to deliver, before investing in a project, before publishing a project, as Edson mentioned, how important it is to have a team that is extremely capable, recognized, and that truly have a background. They have achieved something. Obviously, there will be a few exceptions in the investment. Some investors want to invest in those who don't have a track record, but it's very difficult to invest in a PPT, just an idea, PowerPoint presentation. Rodrigo, again, mentioned, yeah, there are two, a piece of paper and Excel, they accept anything. So from there, you can have a financial estimate for $40 billion. That's easy to put on a spreadsheet, but to make it real, that's more difficult. So on our side of Cocu, when we talk about funding, especially bringing funding to a company that had a chance of, there was a chance that we would not become a unicorn. Our scalability was not that high. We would, go through hurdles to continue growing. So in our planning, Cocu, the whole proposition that we brought to bring funding, and we're in different funding rounds now. It's much more of presenting the future plan, the team, what we had achieved already, and our EBITDA as well, knowing that we can deliver more with less, and that we can be invested. And so along those lines of what we're talking about here, we always seek execution, but when the dev comes and the studio is developing the game, the entrepreneur is opening their company, person is always not sure what do they have to pitch. The entrepreneur, the dev is pitching a dream, their vision, but they can pitch the team, the project. How are they going to decide on what they have to present, what they have to pitch, their strong points, their strengths? Are they going to sell the dream or going to pitch the company? How do you see that? I think from the publisher's point of view, before the dev going out seeking for funding for VCs, there's homework to be done. Defining their own goals. What kind of studio do we want to be? You know, do we want to build a strong foundation and then sell the studio in 5 years? What kind of projects are we want to give life to? Is it going to be original IPs? Are we going to outsource? What's the road we're going to walk down? Is it going to be more commercial games, mobile, slot machine kind of thing, just getting the money? So that would help the dev to understand the type of smart money that they're going to seek for, and what kind of experience they want to bring from the partner, something that'll contribute to the project. Even, being the devil's advocate here, do we need a publisher? That should be on the table. Not everybody needs a publisher, so that's very clear today. So we usually say it's, for certain devs, it's better for you to self-publish, go down that road, rather than signing a contract that you're not comfortable with, or you end up being in an unhealthy financial relationship for you and your team. But if the answer is yes, let's seek a partner, it's always important to think about the sustainability, not just the studios, but the partner sustainability. What do I mean? Devs should seek information about the partner they're talking to. Who are these guys? Do the homework. I was actually earlier talking to Essio. At the same rate that you increase the number of games that are released, the number of indie studios, it is hand in hand with a number of service suppliers and number of indie publishers that arise every year. So you have to surround yourself of information. Who's this partner? Where does their money come from? Because you're going to be going into a relationship of months, maybe years. So you need somebody who's going to be there with you throughout the whole time, and not, in 6 months they're gonna feel sick, they shut down, close their doors, and abandon you. That can be, just unbearable sometimes. And just in wrapping up, as a publisher, do you sell the team? Do you sell the game? We end up going back to IP, right? And our guidance is, do not sell your IP. We might even discuss this at length. That's an interesting point, yes. When you talk specifically about games, the IP discussion, it's a hard discussion between publishers and this devs. We see horrible contracts that devs sign, and then they regret for the rest of their lives. Yes, Devolver, way back there, before Devolver, the founding partners, they had a traumatic experience having a AAA publisher as a partner. They know where it hurts for indie devs. Devolver started with that indie DNA, so they know where it hurts. So if it's your game, it's your baby, it's the soul. You have to take care of the child and the soul. Don't sell your IP. It's 100% original. No one else has that. So no one else will have that. So, and you don't know how much this IP will be worth in 5-10 years. So if somebody comes and they're interested in your IP, it shows it's got potential, some cool potential. Somebody sees this as, something promising. It could become a motion picture, comics, t-shirts, whatever. It's obvious that each and every dev knows their pain, where they hurt. If you have, a very, enticing proposition, with the devs that we work with, we say, don't sell your IP, protect your IP, do not trade your IP. There are other ways. Have an contract for the provide the rights for a certain amount of time. There are structures and alternatives, yes, but whenever possible, protect your IP. So talking about the pains, pain points, there are many of them. I'm going to bring it over to Thiago. For those who don't know, Cocu went through some rough patches, during the harsh moments that you went through. You almost, gave up on it, and today you've recovered. You were funded, invested. You're, really skyrocketing, respected. What was this turnaround like? What did VC saw in you guys? Well, those who want to know Cocu a bit more of the story, there are many news media outlets where you can see me crying about stuff. So there was a major process of learning. Started as a company building games for Facebook, and then mobile. We had our own IP. We started providing services, and then we hit guerrilla games, guys. And when Cocu is turning 10 years old this year. We as well. Congrats! Oh, happy anniversary! So we tried funding from the first year. It was a learning process to understand what VCs, angel investors, what these great companies want, what they're looking for. And that's when we truly started understanding that what we needed to learn is not just a project, not just a PowerPoint, but start showing what our plans were, what we had done already, and what we expected or hoped for. So in 2018, we managed to have our first major investment. We consider it as a seed capital, but that investment, along with FINEP, we went through a panel, 500 companies that were seeking investment. Only 8 of the 500 got funding. One of there were many people from the market. The whole interview was headed by people and professionals from the marketplace, from VCs. And one of the things when Rodrigo talked about selling, what should entrepreneurs pitch? One of them asked how much I had invested. I said, I have already sold a car to invest. I sold my own car. So one of the things they truly understood is that we were willing and we had a plan, not a plan that we're going to build an IP and we're going to have this revenue. No, it's a plan of becoming what we are starting to become now. It's the first time I'm saying this actually in public. We're becoming a group. As a group, we're not just a service provider company, but we have become a company that is seeking other studios to be able to invest, to acquire M&A, and have a venture round. We're setting up a new company in the state of São Paulo, focused on our own products, our own IP. So we will announce more details throughout the month. I would love to be able to talk more about this, but our PR folks, yeah, come on, breaking news, da, 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 da. So yes, so there's this whole plan, to release the news, and we're investing 5 to 10 million. And at this moment, we're going for one more round for expansion, going abroad. There are some companies that were very much ahead with negotiations. Cocu, when we were funded in 2018, we presented a plan where we wanted to get and what we wanted to do to get there. So a service company has a cap, and to increase the revenue, I have to increase the cost. That's not attractive. So how do you get, you're going to invest in IP, in technology as well, in expansion. That's when we started truly to win the game, to get the VCs on our side. When they started looking at us and saying, okay, these guys are serious about it, they have good planning, and they looked at our team. We didn't try to come short with the team. The producers from the Microsoft Canada to bring experience, AAA experience. They were truly part of the AAA bringing experiences to our processes. And so now in our planning, we could continue to grow. And what we pitched was not a dream. It was a plan with stages. So yes, your capacity, you demonstrated the capacity to deliver, even for those who are starting. That's what matters for investors. It's your capacity to deliver. That'll make them sure that it's going to be great investment. It's very interesting also, and congratulations. You go from investee to investor. So great experience.
In this line, I would like to now talk to Edison. I have so many cool investments in different companies, but one discussion that is hot in the industry nowadays when we talk about technology and investments is the difference between investing in content and investing in a company. So people say that investing in content is very difficult because it's binary, yes or no, and company has more nuances. It's easier to assess. Nowadays, Fernando, have a very different opinion. I used to think that content was very hard to assess as an investor. Nowadays, I think that the content has different variables to be assessed. The content is not dissociated from the company, but I would like to hear from Edison. What do you think about it? Well, I think this is a very rich debate, and that's where venture capital meets the content producer. How many contents Hoover had to produce to get to Angry Birds? 60. No, more than 60. It was one of the latest ones. They were about to go bankrupt. Yeah, I would say more than 100. And from the venture capital investor point of view, we invest in companies, right? So going back to your question, we have to see the ability of the dev, the publisher, whoever, to build an organization. We want that person to show us the peak of the Everest. Where are they climbing to? How are they going to go from the airport to the base camp? And they have to show us that they will have the ability of not only be the chief of a household, but from being the chief of a community, of a region, of a nation. Because in Unicorn, big company is made of leadership and people that will have to produce content in scale. So how can you produce the first game, nail it, the first game, the first platform? And then how do you feed that so that can continue throughout time in an organic way from our point of view? So going back to what Rodrigo said, it's no good keep paying for media, right? Everybody does that. But how do I reach the end user in a proprietary, scalable manner? Is it word of mouth? What is it? So these are the elements that make a perfect investment. Cool, very cool, Edson. And now my 5 seconds, if you want help with that, please call us at Nuuvem and we will help you do that. Hey, on sale now. Yeah, well, I have to sell my business, right? Well, we can see, you know, Devolver, your eyes as publishers are amazing. We see the way you look at the different games, you go out of the box, the non-traditional. So how are you guys thinking at the moment in terms of game styles? What are the new trends that you find interesting? Yeah, come on, Rodrigo. The best indies. No, I wouldn't say the best indies, but they're kind of good. Yeah, so some stuff. The amusing ones, perhaps. Oh, but well, it's funny actually because the choice, choosing a project, is one of the things that people always ask us about. And this question doesn't come only from journalists, it also comes from the devs themselves, from the community. Nintendo itself a while ago asked us, how do you find games? What do you look for in a game? Devolver has a face, and I believe that to this day, we cannot deliver a definite answer. I believe that the common denominator amongst all projects that we have engaged with so far is they're good games. And our lineup is proof of that. We have a very diverse portfolio, miniature Grizo, Dropsy, smaller games. We have more robust projects such as Shadow Oil through some. And we have many different genres, different art styles, very heterogeneous, let's say. And that's due to the fact, Fernando, that our MO, well, each one has their own style of going about it. We don't have a scouting person. Nobody in Devolver goes out seeking for a specific game or something. And, oh, let's go and find a battle royale because it's fashionable nowadays and everybody is digging it. No, that's not how it works for us. Our MO has always been having someone in the team coming across something, spotting a different project that makes their eyes sparkle, and then they bring this project to us. We analyze it, the whole team analyzes it. So it's not the one person inside Devolver that makes the yes or no call. Okay, so it's not a guy scouting the streets to, yeah, there's not one single person that says we are going to publish it or not. It is a group decision. Everybody analyzes the game, plays it, we all have fun, we give our opinion, and then we have a collective decision. Are we going to invest in this project or not? And then we start the negotiations with the dev. But it's usually someone who's attempting at doing something quite different. And we believe that more people should get to know that different thing, be it a bigger or smaller game. I don't want to seem old-fashioned, but you know, it's not so important for us if it's going to sell 5,000 or 50 million, because we have to validate that as a success key. The thing is, it's always a bet, isn't it, Fernando? So we do have some KPIs, some indicators. We have loads of data that undoubtedly do help us greatly to project different scenarios. But at the end of the day, it's on day one, isn't it? and post-launch that you're going to find out if the game is a success or not. Cool, pretty cool. And guys, we are seeing the games market just skyrocketing, right? Of course, we have the COVID effect, but we've been mapping it, and it's not just now. We know that this is one of the biggest entertainment industries in the world. I think it's 100-fold the music industry, twice the size of the Hollywood industry. And of course, this growth comes at a cost. We know there's never been cheaper or easier to develop a game. Everybody has access to the same tools that the biggest game companies access. Everybody can get Unity and develop their games. But that created a problem because we have this wave. It's almost a Red Sea of games flooding the market. How do we deal with that? How the developer can be discovered? How can they stand out? Do you have any tips? Because that's also attractive, right? It attracts investments. We have the Among Us case, such a beautiful case. It's been launched for 2 years, and it was very little known, a very niche game. And then out of blue, during COVID, it became a world fever, reaching 2 million copies, a huge success. So what is the extra, what is beyond luck? What can the new dev do to stand out? I can start, and I can suggest speaking a percolation cycle. So all of the big things, the contagious things, just like COVID, start in a very small area, but highly infected. So Facebook did not start in 600 countries with 55 languages. It started at Harvard. So tip number 1, win over a chicken hen, but 100% of that chicken hen, because the chances of you being able to explode from that, if I'm a dev, go and take over a school, a college. It always starts at colleges. It's one place, the one spot, the one neighborhood, and then things go on from there. Yeah, that's great, Edson. And it's a saying that we have that is good for all industries. It's better to start having 100 people that love your game than having 10,000 that think it's okay. And that's very important, isn't it? We make it quite clear, well, with 100 people, I'll never earn any money. No, with 100 people, that means that you've found the engaging spot. You've nailed it with that 100 people, and it's so much easier to develop a base with people that are really passionate about your product, right? Rodrigo, yeah, for sure, because these people that love your game, they are catalyzing points for your communication, right? You have to be heard, to be seen. So from the marketing and communication point of view, we have 2 important points. Regardless if you're going to do it as a standalone, if you're going to do it on your own or with a publisher, I think the earlier the dev can start building a community around their IP, their game, the better. That is so important, to start sharing the development process. Look, the environments that we are creating, this is our universe, these are our characters. This is so important because you start to engage, you start to create your little chicken hen, and these chickens, they will make some noise, and the wolves and the foxes will start to hear it and come as well. There's some juicy stuff here. So I think that this point for communication is very important. The sooner the dev can start developing their community around the game, the better. It's so important because on a second stage, that will give them foundation to go and knock on the door of specialized media and companies and have a storytelling, having something to tell to that journalist, so the journalist will be able to write about it, to interview people at the studio, and then maybe you can reach influencers that will help catalyze this process and do this mass communication of the story you want to tell. Cool, so cool, that's it. And this is a very important point, isn't it? Because nowadays, without a community, without social media, it's very hard to grow. Among Us that I just mentioned, it was leveraged by the community, right? That community that was absolutely in love with that game. So they had that very small but passionate community that throughout 2 years kept giving feedback on the game. And that doesn't apply just for that case, but for startups of all levels. We have to listen to our user, right? To understand what they're trying to tell you. And many people talk about different topics nowadays. We talk about blockchain in games. I don't know if that's something that is on your landscape, but we see some games being built on top of blockchains so that the items can be commercialized freely outside the game environment. Virtual reality is always growing slowly but steadily. So we are saying that it can become mainstream. It is already mainstream. I was recently impressed with the quality that Facebook managed to put on their headsets. So these crazy new stuff that are up and coming in games, do you think that's something that can help the dev stand out? I will point out Tiago. He talked about technology before. Okay, I'll talk about two aspects. First, trends, and the second, new technologies. Technology. We act usually on a day-to-day basis with the biggest companies in the industry focused on PC, different consoles, Google. We haven't had any type of open demand to develop blockchain-focused games because this free market amongst users, well, it can also be something, yeah, it's controversial, isn't it? It is, because you can be hindering a revenue path for the company, right? So that can be a but. So we haven't received any demands in that sense, but I do believe there is a certain trend. And I believe that blockchain will bring loads of changes for the games. The fact that the blockchain is generating some discomfort on the giants, well, that is a flag for change, right? It happened a while ago as well, until you need to get acquainted with this new stuff and then make it work for you. So this is something that we are yet to see as developers. However, in terms of technology, this is something that our company is yet to work with. Slightly harder. What we see as big trends nowadays are the metaverses. Each company is now further developing their metaverse. Maybe both things can be called together, metaverse and blockchain. That can be interesting. But it's something that we haven't seen yet. But I think Edson, from technology can bring the numbers, can bring more input in this technology and how much it could generate in terms of value. So, Edson, Tell us, what do you think about it? What do you see in terms of technology? We hear so much about it. The upside, the downside for blockchain for a gamer is a nightmare because we have no GPU, right? You cannot purchase a GPU. You want to assemble your machine and it's the double price because of the mining people that are buying, they are purchase it like bread. But we have the technological side as well. So I want to hear from you. What is interesting in the landscape? What can you see that will be nice for games and development and developers? I think we haven't seen a lot yet, but looking to a track record of other segments in the market, we believe that this will develop once we have platforms for that. What you guys just said is very similar to what happened before AWS. Everybody needed to have their own server and it was quite expensive. So we will have a Cambrian explosion when a global player is established like AWS, because till then it's just a lot of, treasure hunters that won't find any treasure. Yeah, we see so many amazing trends, and it's interesting to see that because the games industry has been a cradle for new technologies for a long time, right? People talk about the F2P, free to play, and that started with the PC shareware. Do you remember the floppy disks when we were sharing demos of games? VR started with the games as well. Gamers embraced VR early on, before we had the first products coming along properly. So I think the games devs, they should try. They should tip their toes. I'm not saying that you should go ahead and develop your game on blockchain, but it's interesting because when you do something different, you have more chances of standing out and really earning the attention from the investors, like you guys that are here now, right? So before we start the Q&A, I would like to ask one last question. So if a dev or a business person that is watching us wants to get you to listen to them, to their project, what do they need to do? What they need to send to you that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to take a look at this? Well, a tip. I thought about a swear word here. I will refrain myself from saying it. I would say make the game, create the game that you want to create. Creative freedom for a dev is of utmost importance, and you need to be free to say that. Of course, you have to be open to different input from your partner, but you need to have that freedom to have a very transparent conversation and say, cool, thank you, but we are going to just do it our way. So do the game that you want to do and create a new game that you know doesn't exist. And you know that if existed, you would love to play it a lot. That's very important. And to convey that to a publisher, ideally, you should have a well-polished demo of your game ability. Of course, art and music are important elements, but you can convey that through visual concepts, the music, the track sound, and the visual production, later on is much easier to do. But if you have a rounded up, polished and rounded demo that really conveys the core of your project, it's differential what you need to convey, to communicate. If you do that, that's halfway done. Yes, half the way to have a good partner by your side in your project. So create the game that you want to create and prepare a very nice, well-polished demo, and good luck. Amazing, Tiago. I think that another great tip is know where you are going. Read the room, you know. If you don't want to do something, if you're going for mobile, for example, or one thing that I've heard for a long time is to show your KPIs, show that you were able to do at least a soft launch by yourself. Going back to what Edison said, first, win over your check hand, your Harvard, and test it very well there, learn from that, improve it, and then you can go after new things. So KPIs are very important. And for a premium game, it may be that the fact that it is a, a game with an amazing game ability, a game playing experience, then that may be enough. If it's great to play, okay. Now, if it is a game that will be maybe a service, then you need to show how it's going to be monetized. What are you going to sell and how are you going to sell? Yeah, you can't just say that you're going to sell diamonds, right? Yeah, from Coco. Okay, well, I'm going to say I'm going to sell coconias at a Coco game. Okay, but how? How are you going to sell that? It makes no sense. How is it going to work? So when you're doing that, you need to show what you intend to sell, especially the retention KPIs as well, to show that, yes, you have done your homework. I've heard something elsewhere, another moment that really opened my eyes. Talking about technology and mobile. If you want to understand how valuable, how important is your app, your game, etc., check how many times people open it during a day. You open your Instagram hundreds of times a day to communicate, your Instagram, your Facebook. So the more addicting your game is, the better, right? So if you can put together a retention KPI showing that people are coming back to your game, and also how are you going to sell, how are you going to monetize, then I'm sure that Addison will love your project and will take a look at it. Be professional. It is a highly competitive, professionalized world. 10 years ago, when I started to invest, it seemed that we were still in a tally game world. Nowadays, we have worldwide competitors. From Brazil, we compete with the whole world. So talk to the companies that invest, understand what do we think, what do we like, seek advice from other publishers, other gamers, pardon, that have received investment. And the amount of content that you can Google is unbelievable. So it's ridiculous. You just have to write perfect pitch for fundraising game developer, and you will find 500 different models. So it's unforgivable to receive something, that it's not good. So you need to come super ready, and also ready for a relationship, not for a sale. That is another common mistake. So these investments, they are built throughout time. Be ready for the relationship. Yes, that is pretty cool, Edson, isn't it? It's very common to see games, dev, and they just say, give me the money and let me do my work. And it's not about that, it is a partner. You have to see that person as a partner, someone for the long run. So that's very important. Guys, thank you very much. Before we start, we have a few more questions for a few more minutes for a couple of questions. So the first question.
How can a dev team protect themselves when selecting VCs to avoid future problems? Is there a way that they can shield themselves, protect themselves? Is there a suggestion that you can give these folks that they're, worried about relationships? I think we actually kind of glossed over it quick. Um, the best shielding is information. So it's available today. Ask questions. Have no fear of asking questions. As Edison mentioned, if you're going to go into a relationship for months, years on, so you have to have a clear level of transparency with your partner. You have to understand not just the figures, but when the money is coming in, where it's going to go out, what the split's going to be down the road. But have to have an open game. Ask questions. Don't let questions in the air. You're talking to someone, publishers, VCs. These folks, they have, invested in other projects, launched other projects, talk to the other devs that they invested in. Okay, usually go to the dev that's, that was a big hit, what it was like to work with publisher so and so, what it was like for you guys. But go to the ones that maybe the project didn't work out right, to understand the dev's point of view. Where didn't it work? Where could it have been better? Your best protection is information. Do your research. Ask other developers that have worked with this possible partner what they thought about the experience, and ask questions. Do not be afraid. Ask questions. Have it all on the table. Candid relationship. That's the best protection against going into a shark-infested water. Good advice to protect. Do not be cheap with your legal counsel. Excellent advice. My cousin who's in the first year of law school. No, and don't even believe that you know. It's the most stupid cheapness. You don't have legal knowledge. You be sure that you're going to be in difficult conditions, and then you're going to be stuck with a contract you cannot abandon. So leave in. And my greatest advice: do not be cheap with your legal counsel. Don't get your friend who's going to do it pro bono for free. No, I fully agree with you. And I'll say one more thing: it's not any legal counsel. If you get a lawyer who is extremely well recognized, but their expertise is restaurants, be careful. They might not know how to discuss what a games contract is like, a startup contract is like, with smaller companies. It's not just finding a good lawyer. It's somebody who understands a bit more in your industry than the average legal counsel, because you can have a great divorce lawyer drafting a games contract. Edison, you wanted to chime in? Loved the advice on the legal counsel, man. Yes. Surround yourself of good people. Yes. And highlighting. Yes. Talk to other entrepreneurs, other gamers. Those are the best sources of information. Yes. Yes, folks. So our time has run up already. And once again, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart, everybody who's watching us, especially our guests, Rodrigo, Thiago, Edson. Thank you so much for your time and for opening, having your brains picked here. Folks from Big, thank you very much for the invite. Yes, thank you. Thank you. It was excellent advice. Man, the legal counsel, the lawyer. It's great to know how to invest, where to invest. This was a masterclass. So Big is incredible. It's wonderful. Another interesting and rich talk. Stay tuned.
Big Festival 2021, the biggest games festival in Latin America.